Hello, my name is Lola Ru, but you can call me Lola Ru, and this is my testimony.
This is my testimony. This is my testimony of what was done for me. This is my testimony. I've got a story to tell to the nation.
As a teenage girl, I struggled a lot with depression and fear of rejection. My family had to separate. My mom moved to the USA, and I stayed with my dad. And this became a very difficult time for me because we were a very close family as a child. And the split literally happened when I just turned 13. And a lot of things happened in that time. Starting to learn how to become a girl, little woman. Um, and obviously, yes, I would have conversations with my mom, but it wasn't the same not having her around. And as a result, I found that I turned to boys. I turned to boys to seek validation, to seek love. And it would start off as just, simple friendships. And at a certain point, some of those friendships became sexual. And I found myself just depleting in confidence, in self esteem, in my self worth, in my self value. And this led me to a very deep season of depression. And during this season, I found myself turning to a lot of writing because I didn't feel like people understood me. Yes, I had friends in high school, but I always felt like I'm in the room, but I'm not able to connect with anyone. My grades started dropping. I used to be such an ambitious girl. And by the time I was 16, a friend of mine introduced me to her youth group. And it's in this youth group that I started growing in understanding what it meant to follow Jesus. And I believe this is really where the turn really started. So when I gave my life to Jesus, I really started writing even more and journaling. And I didn't know what it was then, but I started prophetic journaling. And I would really just use little notebooks. I remember going through so many notebooks, and sometimes there'd even be mathematical notebooks. Just as long as I could get myself onto a book, I would be writing. I would find myself in the living room, on the floor, just sitting and hearing what I felt the Lord was leading, the different visions, the different dreams, some things about my future as well, including what my future husband, um, the ministry that he would be in. And I found myself growing in such a strong passion for prayer and praying for people as well. So, and yes, I would say the journey really, really just continued. But as much as I continued to grow spiritually, I would still battle um, with depression a lot of the times. And I remember this one time thinking to myself, I would love to start a magazine to really just start spreading light, on the issues surrounding depression and peer pressure and the things that we go through as a young girl at the time. But little did I know that this was the beginning of an author being birthed. And there was a time when I thought to myself, you know what? I wonder what it would take to actually write a book. And I remember telling a mentor of mine, so she was my dance leader. There was a point where I joined worship dance ministry, and I was also in the music industry ministry. My hunger for the Lord really led me to serve a lot. I was part of the youth leadership, and so my dance leader said to me, "You know what? You are such you know uh, a great writer, and you should really, really um, take writing a book seriously." And so I was like, yeah, 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 that's a good idea, but it always felt like such a far-fetched idea. So as it was, I left high school and I started to pursue what I felt was my passion then. I went to beauty school, which was a passion I had since I was 14, believe it or not. I was one of those people that just had made up their minds that this is what I want to do. I wanted to actually do beauty school in the States so that I'm with my mom and my siblings, but it didn't really work out. And I was, oh my goodness, I was so devastated. But then I decided, you know what? I'm not going to let that get me down. So I enrolled in a local college. They had 6-month programs. I just did the certification. And then after that, I did my attachment. And so it was when I was at my attachment, I had a very bad scenario. I had a client, he was a male client, and when I was doing their massage, they really started saying inappropriate gestures towards me, and I didn't really feel comfortable. I mean, I'm really only 19, going on 20 at this time. And I remember approaching my manager about it, and she said to me, you know what, you just have to learn to be professional, and this is part of the job. And I remember saying to myself in my heart, I stayed on for a little bit, I think another month, but I had made up my mind that this is not for me. I am just, if this is what the beauty industry is about, I would rather go at it alone and serve women only, and the only way I could do that was to start my own business. So, yes, a bit of that teenage ambitious girl came up again, and I started my own mobile massage business at 20 with no business experience whatsoever. And when I got started, I had another friend from my church. So she used to do bridal makeup and nails. And I obviously loved more the massage and the facials, the body therapy. And so we partnered and we decided to get ourselves a spot to rent. So we got our first spot, and then eventually we felt it was too small, and then we got a second spot. So when we got the second spot, things were fine, I would say, but we were not making a profit at all. And obviously, I know now that my marketing was terrible. I was really relying on referrals and friends and family, and sitting and feeling depressed to say, oh, so and so knows about this. Why aren't they coming? If you ever want to get into business, do not do that. But yes, I sat there most of the times, and I believe this is the place where God really met me. And as well, my friend and partner, she got really busy because in that year she got engaged. And so she started planning her wedding. And so a lot of the time she wouldn't even come in. She's busy wedding planning. And so I'm sitting alone in our little spa and I got the pen and notebook, but this time it wasn't just to journal, it was to write my very first book. And so this is the time when I actually wrote my first book. So at this point, should be about 21. I wrote my first book, and I kid you not, the grace of God was so thick. It took me a week to outline, to write. It just flowed, and I just couldn't stop. The passion, the fire was just burning. And the pain point at that time was I realized that to gain a muscle, to really overcome depression, I had to learn spiritual warfare. I had to learn prayer. And so I really studied the armor of God. And so this was really a personal practice that I started for myself. And I believed that the tools that the Holy Spirit was downloading would help so many other people. And so this is what my first book was about, a prayer devotional for women based on the armor of God. And it is called Glow. And initially, I remember thinking, glow, and we're talking about God's armor, but the way God unfolded the insight in that really, really till today, I have to actually keep going back to the message in that book. But little did I know that this was really just the seed, this was really just the beginning. And I then started searching for publishers to help me, get this off the ground because, like I said, I'm not being mentored or being taught by anyone. And this is just purely me and God. And I thought to myself, I went to different publishing houses locally, and each would refer me to another one. And there was one in particular that people kept bringing up. They would say they would definitely take you on. And then when I wrote to them, they then told me, unfortunately, they do not do religious books. Honestly, that dumbfounded me. That really dumbfounded me. Obviously, I know now that, people can choose the niche that they want to work in. But at the time, I just felt that rejection again that I used to struggle with as a teenage girl. I felt that rejection, and I think I literally just put the project on hold. Um, but it wasn't until about a year and a half later, it just burned so much, and I decided, you know what? Practically, what is it that what does it take to actually have a book in people's hands? And when I started going around, I literally started looking for designers. I knew some graphic designer friends. They were like, we've never worked with a book before, but you know what? We love the challenge. And they really started putting the outline together. And as that was happening, one of the people in the graphic design team said, you know what, they know someone who's actually a publishing consultant. And I was like, what is that? And how come I've never heard of it all this time? And so, yes, so I linked up with this publishing consultant, and that was just the game changer. He really brought my notebook and everything that I had done and created and put it together and gave the guidance to make it an official book. And yeah, and from there, after I think by August of I can't remember the year, it must have been 2013. I was about 23 at the time. I launched my first book, and it was really such a, oh my goodness, it was such a glorious time, because I feel like in that moment, it's almost as if God was just showing me the journey that I've walked and how he's really been with me through it all. So even though there was that season of waiting from the moment that I had written the book to the moment that I published it, um, I feel like there was a work that God was doing in me. And by the time it was being released, I was ready. I didn't know it then, but I see it now because afterwards there would be such a new path, a new season that God was going to start revealing and showing me and actually really leading me more into my purpose. And book sales would go well. Obviously, from my massage business, I now knew that you need to speak. So I would really talk about my book a lot. One trick that I always used to do was because it was a good size, so it could fit in like my purse. So I never went anywhere without a copy of my book. So I always had a copy of my book. And a lot of the time, sometimes I'd find myself by the bus stop talking to someone, a complete stranger, and the book would come up and they'd be like, wow, I'd love a copy. And I'd be like, I've got one in my bag. you know? Um, and then eventually I started meeting people that kept asking me, how did you do it? And I think for me, at the time, it was like, I don't know if I can even, answer this. But then when I eventually took the plunge to actually have a conversation with someone, I was really amazed at how it just flowed and how I actually had the blueprint in me. And yeah, so I started talking to people and, that would ask, oh, so how did you do it? And I'd let them know. Some people would actually message me, some time later, like 6 months later or 1 year later. They'd be like, oh, wow, Lola, look, I've published my book. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome. She really pushed me, um, helped me come up with an offer, helped me create my first mini course on book writing. And yeah, that is when my next business began, in online business entrepreneurship. And I would like to say I have not looked back. And what the beautiful thing is, this journey hasn't just been about business. Ministry has also been birthed. And like I said, my first book, Glow, I thought, this is it, but it was only the seed, it was only the beginning. So, May last year, which is literally a year now, um, I then got the leading to, you know, create and start a brand. And so I started a brand beginning of this year called Crowned to Glow. It's really founded on Isaiah 61, which has been my purpose in ministry scripture from the time I was a teenager. But then it's like the full picture, the fullness has really been made clear in this season and now. And in this space, I help women. For us, we grow in worship, we grow in writing, we grow in wellness, and we grow in wealth. And it's so beautiful because it's like I'm seeing everything come together in full circle. And it's really just a place to experience full transformation. And yeah, we host prayer lounges, and I am in awe, honestly, at the work that God has been doing through this. When I look back and I think about that teenage girl, I'm amazed. And obviously the fact that God completely changed my dream. And yeah, I'm really, really amazed at the work of the Lord in my life. And this is my testimony.
Thank you. Thank you. As you were talking, I was thinking of questions that I wanted to ask you.
Mhm.
First one, when you had the opportunity to come to the States for cosmetology, and you said you were upset, or not upset, but kind of disappointed.
Mhm.
Why were you disappointed that you couldn't come to the States to study cosmetology?
My heart had been yearning to be closer to my mom. And so when my visa got rejected, I just I was disappointed in the fact that I just felt like that dream of being able to bond with my mom in my tender years um, was just fading away. I felt like it was fading away. So it was really more about reconnecting with my mom and my siblings. And secondly, if I'm being honest, I don't think I had much confidence in the standard of beauty um, in my country at the time. Not that they're not good, but then there's always this notion, sometimes, especially as an African girl, that the grass is greener somewhere else, you know? And I think because America just sort of leads in that space. I mean, there are other leaders in the space, but America is definitely one of the biggest leaders. Even when you do research, they have they have the highest spa rate. There's more spas in the USA than anywhere else, you know. So that really was the disappointment. So it's kind of like choosing between, option A being, you know, the the 3 course or 6 course meal, and then option B would be like simple sandwiches. They're still nutritious, but you know. So yeah, it was twofold. Yeah.
So, what would you say to the teenage Lola who felt depressed, rejected, separated? Now, if you're looking back at Lola at that age, I don't know what age was that. Was that 12, 13 when your mom moved?
Yeah.
13, 14, 15? What would you say now to Lola of 13, 14, 15 age now?
First of all, um, Lola, you are a daughter of God first, and that will always be your position at any season of your life. And because you are a daughter of God first, go to Him for your comfort. Go to Him for your wisdom. Go to Him for the warmth that you need. He is not just a loving Father, but He is a nurturing God. And He can provide the nurturing and the wisdom that you need. And more so, He will give you the blueprint, because He created you as a masterpiece, and you are going to be amazed at what He's going to do in your life because He knows the plans that He has for your life. Trust Him. From that journey, I really started growing more, and just allowing God to sharpen the craft of writing. And I started a blog. And from starting a blog, I actually ended up landing a job at the time. It was a client in the UK, and they needed some content creation done for their website. And it was really such an amazing mix because their industry was in beauty and fashion. And I already had, a background in beauty. So being able to merge the beauty and the writing, I was like, oh my word. And so these are things that I never knew could actually even be possible. The journey continued, and eventually I I started getting more clients and really started getting more training in different areas in content creation and copywriting. And I then met, I would say she was absolutely my destiny helper, this woman called Tracy Malone. So I became her virtual assistant in copywriting. And in that season, as I was her email marketing girl and, managing her inner circle community, and she was a faith-based prophetic business coach. And so it was so amazing just working with her. And I remember this one time, she then mentioned that she would like to release a book and everything. And then, obviously, as usual, I'm like, yeah, so this is what you should do, and ABC, ABC. And before I even finished, she literally stopped me right at my tracks and she says, Lola, I cannot believe that you have been giving away this information for free. Oh, wow. If I'm being completely honest, it looked different in different seasons. Um, but I will start with what has been consistent. What has been consistent is definitely the power of worship and praise. I cannot emphasize that enough. That power to know to go to Him because the warfare begins in the mind. I know we've heard that a lot, but if we can master um, just taking thoughts captive. And so that's for me was the main warfare. Oh my goodness. Taking thoughts captive because obviously the subconscious and my default belief system, the faulty belief system that I had to work through about me not being good enough would always want to come to the party and make unnecessary noise. So being able to, really take up, the sword of the Spirit, God's word, and really just find myself spending time with him, and it's not about the length, but it's about actually coming to God honestly, you know, and not suppressing things. So I would um, struggle with suppressing things a lot. I guess that's why I love writing because then I can actually express. But then even then, there were seasons where even though I knew that journaling, writing are things that helped, I wouldn't even go to it. And so, but worship would definitely break me free. And I would just, feel the expression and the flow coming back again. Secondly, I did go through seasons where I met people that really were graced in counseling and deliverance because there's some things that I had to uproot. And so I went through seasons of speaking with amazing women of God. And I say seasons deliberately because, for sure, at different points of my life, there were different people that I would meet and speak with. And it's like in each moment, a different yeah, a different layer, I guess, is being uncovered. Um, and I guess that will be what God would feel I now, have the capacity or the grace to handle, And yeah, lastly, I feel the community aspect is really important. Just being so, 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 so careful who you keep around and who you listen to, even when you're alone, you know, be careful what you're listening to. I mean, we are in such a scroll addiction kind of culture now. And the algorithm obviously will start showing us the things that we click on the most and stuff like that. And so just making sure for me that those things became very protected um, was important to um, and I also am a firm believer in fasting and prayer. I don't mind turning down my plate when I feel led to do so. So yeah, it's a combination. First of all, I really want you to know that you are loved. You may not feel it right now, but you have been loved with an everlasting love. And you are unique. There is no one under the sun that is like you. And the pain that you are experiencing right now, when you give it to God, He can turn it into purpose. He can turn it into passion. He can turn it into something so beautiful. And healing is possible. It may feel like a never ending cycle, a never ending pattern, but healing is possible. But you have to reach out and desire it and want it. And I want you to also know that you can do anything you put your mind to. You absolutely can. You really, really can. And good things are in store. I want you to practice gratitude because one thing I know that you cannot be grateful and anxious at the same time. And if there is a way to literally hold yourself and harness yourself quickly, just say thank you. Thank you that I am breathing. Thank you that I can see. Thank you that I am in good health, even though I don't feel it. Just say thank you because there is power in your gratitude. And I want you to allow yourself to dream. I want you to allow yourself to write that vision down. You may feel like it's so far and so unreachable, but you do not know what God can do in an instant. So I want you to allow yourself for hope to arise again. I want you to go into nature, appreciate your surroundings, appreciate the sky, appreciate the trees, see the beauty around you, see the beauty around you and just be present. Be present in that moment. Allow yourself to feel a different feeling because I know that depression can really feel like such a stronghold. But allow yourself to start deliberately and intentionally feeling a whole new feeling. And eventually, I know eventually you will testify that you are experiencing a joy that you've never known before. And I speak the joy of the Lord over you. I speak his favor. I speak his love. I speak his embrace. And I say that feeling, that depression, it has no power over you in the name of Jesus. And you are free to be who God has called you to be. I, I am Lola Ru, and this is my testimony.
This is my testimony. This is my testimony of what was done for me. This is my testimony. Our God is story to tell to the nation.